Hello, welcome everyone, and thanks for tuning in. We're here with the candidates running for this year's Vancity's Board of Directors. My name is Zara Demjanovic, and I've been a Vancity staff member for the past 15 years. I am so excited to be here today representing our membership as your host and moderator. Every year, Vancity holds an election for 3 Board of Directors positions. Your input in this election is key to shaping Vancity's future. Member involvement is a cornerstone of the credit union values and is vital to the innovative strategies that enable Vancity to serve its members, communities, and beyond. We encourage you to ask questions during this live event in the comment section, and we'll do our best to answer as many of your questions as possible. We'll also provide you with details at the end of the event on how to connect directly with the candidates. Voting is open until Thursday, April 18th, 2019 at 4 p.m. Pacific Daylight Time. You can vote at any time during tonight's broadcast at vancity.com/elections or on the Vancity app on your mobile device. Before we get started with the Q&A, let me first recognize that we're gathered in unceded Coast Salish territory. This is represented today by the Musqueam, Squamish, and Tsleil-Waututh nations. They have been custodians of this land for thousands of years, and I'd like to pay respects to the elders, both past and present. There are a few ground rules that the candidates should keep in mind. First, be thoughtful and respectful of Vancity and the other candidates. Second, candidates cannot commit the board or Vancity on a specific course of action. Third, candidates cannot make false or misleading statements. And finally, candidates are permitted up to 30 seconds for introductions and 1 minute to answer questions. This event is to provide a forum for members to learn more about the candidates and their campaign for election. Issues of a personal nature are not appropriate and should not be raised. Now, let's have the candidates introduce themselves. Let's start with you, Mark.
Thank you, Zara. My name is Mark Pizzaro, and I've been a Vancity member for 15 years. My career has spanned 10 years in IT, senior executive roles at TELUS and Shaw, 15 years as a sustainability consultant, and service on 7 boards. I'm the father of 3 thriving millennials, and I'm owned by a cat. Vancity is a powerful force for positive, impactful change. It would be a privilege to serve on your board and contribute to making that change happen. Please vote for me. Thank you.
Thank you, Mark. Joel?
Thanks, Zara. I'm Joel DeYoung. I've been a proud member of Vancity for 23 years. I'm committed to cooperative values. I'm also a technology professional. I've got a master's in computer science, and I've got over 2 decades of experience leading teams building large software systems. Many of you will be aware of some of the challenges Vancity's had with technology, particularly in the last year. I believe that all members and all staff of Vancity should have access to computer systems that are safe, reliable, and robust. It feels like the right time to elect a tech pro to the board. And that's why I put my name forward, and that's why I'm here today asking for your vote. Thank you.
Thank you, Joel. Patrick?
Thank you. I joined Vancity more than 30 years ago when I arrived in Vancouver to study at UBC. Today, I lead Modo Cooperative. Sustainability and affordability and inclusiveness is my day job. I was hired into Modo to evolve the strategy in a world where very large competitors, some of the largest in the world, are competing and investing, and technology is changing rapidly, and doing that while maintaining true to the core values. Before joining Modo, I was president CEO at Purolator.
Thank you, Patrick. Sharon?
Thank you so much, and thank you to the viewers tonight for tuning into this democratic process. My name is Sharon Gregson, and the experience that I would bring to the position would be that I was elected twice to the Vancouver School Board as a trustee. I've spent about a decade running a multi-million-dollar department at one of the local neighborhood houses in Vancouver, and perhaps most importantly, I'm the provincial spokesperson for the $10 a day childcare plan, working for children and their families and healthy communities and our economy. I'm committed as a feminist to ensuring that Vancity remains a progressive organization, and my top 3 values are truth and reconciliation with Indigenous peoples, dealing with climate change, and inequality. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Sharon. Sean?
Hi, everyone. My name's Sean Mitchell. I've been a member of Vancity, banking at branch number 3 in East Vancouver for 13 years. I believe in what Vancity stands for. I'm proud of its accomplishments, and I'm excited about its potential in BC and beyond. I'm a husband and father to 2 young girls. And much of my career, as both as an executive and as a board director, has been with purpose or values-driven organizations in the nonprofit, charitable, and co-op space. I'm currently the CEO of the Trial Lawyers Association of BC and a director on the board of Mountain Equipment Co-op. I'm asking for your support because I'm an experienced director who has the skills and insights needed to contribute to the leadership of Vancity at the board table on behalf of you, the member. I'm looking forward to the conversation tonight. Cheers.
Thank you, Sean. Rita?
Thank you. Hello, everybody online. My name is Rita Parikh, and I am seeking re-election. It's been a pleasure to be the first director ever elected from Vancouver Island and to serve as the chair of governance over the last year. I've spent the last 3 decades working with community organizations and activists on issues of economic, social, and environmental justice. I'm here because I want to work with Vancity to continue to leverage its intellectual, its financial, and human resources in service of change and in service of the vision that our members seek in their communities.
Thank you, Rita. Stefan?
Hi, everyone. My name is Stefan von Suchowski. I'm the president of the Vancouver and District Labour Council and a member of the board of directors of United Way of the Lower Mainland. And I've been involved in labour and community for over 15 years in a variety of roles. I'm a husband and a father of 1 living in Maple Ridge and working in Vancouver. I'm passionate about cooperative values, about inclusivity and equity, and about bringing a millennial voice to the Vancity board table. I've been a Vancity member since 2003 and a credit union member for my entire life. I hope to have your support and want to thank you all for being here tonight and being engaged in our credit union.
Thank you, Stefan. Nikki?
Hello, everyone. My name is Nikki Sharma. Thanks for joining us tonight. I'm running for re-election for the Vancity board, and I'm running because I believe in Vancity's positive impact on individual members and our community. I'm a lawyer with professional and management experience for complicated progressive initiatives. As your director, I've served as a co-chair for your Climate Justice Working Group and vice chair for the Audit Committee. With your vote, my commitment is to continually strive for excellent member experience and lead with the values that makes Vancity so important. I would be honored to have your vote. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. For those of you just tuning in, this is a live Q&A with our 2019 Board of Directors candidates. You can leave a question for the candidates in the comments section of this post, and we'll ask as many of your questions as we can. Now let's get things started. Our first question is for everyone. What are the top 3 values you would bring to the Vancity Board of Directors that would support and uplift the communities Vancity members live in? Nikki, let's start with you first.
Okay, great. Thanks a lot. So the values that I bring forward and that I live throughout my career and also at the Vancity board are ones of reconciliation. I spent over 10 years working in Indigenous law as part of my practice, and it's something that I believe deeply. I think we're living in a world where there's growing inequality, and Vancity has a role to play in helping our members face that and on affordability. And I believe that we need to strive towards more financial fairness in our society. And third, I've been co-chairing the climate change working group, and I believe that one of the ways that we can ensure member well-being, which is one of our mandates through this time, is to make sure that we are focused on figuring out how members will be impacted with climate change and how we can support them through that. And so those are the things that I bring to the table. Thank you.
Thank you, Nikki. Stefan?
Thank you. I think that 3 of the top values that I bring to the board are cooperation, which sounds like an obvious one for a cooperative organization, but my leadership in various roles has been known for building cooperation and consensus building, whether it's amongst the diverse organizations that make up the Vancouver and District Labour Council and their various interests, or on the political scene in the municipal election last year, bringing together different political voices. That's something that I have strived to do and become known for. In terms of diversity and inclusion, I feel strongly about the need to make sure all voices are heard and that all of our institutions represent the communities that they serve and that they exist within. And I pledge to be an ally in making sure that those voices are heard and bringing everyone's concerns to the table. And finally, I would also say reconciliation, I think, is something that that is so critical in our society right now, and something that I have strive to bring into all of my work and to learn about more personally as well. At Labour Council, we've instituted such things as having a land acknowledgement at the start of meetings. We've done a blanket exercise. We're doing a reconciliation challenge right now, and so I think that it's important that we take personal action on that.
Thank you, Stefan. Rita?
Thank you. So my top 3 values are first, reconciliation. I believe that Vancity has begun that process. We have embedded reconciliation as a principal value in the organization. Our challenge now is how to realize, how to activate that value within the organization. So to continually ask ourselves, what does it mean in terms of the loans we adjudicate? What does it mean in terms of the entrepreneurs that we support? What does reconciliation mean in terms of the housing, affordable housing initiatives that we want to initiate? So reconciliation is one. A second is diversity. I believe that diversity is not an end goal. It is a constant process of asking ourselves, where does power lie? Whose voices are privileged and whose voices are marginalized? And how do we hear the voices of those who are marginalized? How do we bring forward their values, their interests and their needs to the board table and to the organization itself? Finally, I have a deep commitment to climate and supporting our members to ensure that they're protected, they are able to manage the climate change that is going to impact all of our lives in every respect.
Thank you, Rita. Sean?
Thank you. I guess the top 3 that I would identify would be, and they're all interrelated, would be collaboration, inclusiveness, and authenticity. If we look at the issues and the challenges that Vancity wants to bear down on across the province, we're not going to be able to solve those things as a single organization. We need to be able to bring other voices to the table. We need to work with other organizations and other communities in order to achieve solutions that are lasting and meaningful for everyone, which is the inclusiveness part. I read a great quote this morning on CBC that talked about the fact that diversity is inviting people to the party, but inclusiveness is actually inviting people to dance. And how do we do that in a way that makes people feel comfortable and makes them feel a part of the process and involved in the process? And that really then lends itself to authenticity. How do we do things in a way that actually makes people feel comfortable about that invitation to the party, comfortable about the invitation to dance, and actually feel like they can own a part of the outcomes that we achieve together? In all of my work, in all the organizations I've been a part of, these 3 things have been a part of the style that I bring to the organizations that I've been a part of or that I've led, and are, in my opinion, the ways that Vancity can continue to have the success that it's had so far. Thank you.
Thank you, Sean. Sharon?
Well, I have to say that my fellow candidates are absolutely brilliant, and I would agree with all of them. And so rather than repeating some of those things, there's no question that truth and reconciliation with Indigenous peoples is a top priority. Dealing with climate change, it's the #1 issue facing us as individuals and our communities, and inequities that come from that. But I think I would also say one of the values that I bring is an experience of living in poverty and a recognition that so many of us live from paycheck to paycheck, and what that actually means for our ability to participate in our communities and the way that we are bringing up our families with high housing costs, costs of childcare, and the diverse nature of our families. And so thinking about families who are immigrants and refugees and what that means to be here without a lot of family support. And personally, thinking about impact on the environment that we all have, and thinking about vegetarianism and veganism and recycling and the things that we can do as individuals that roll up into a larger impact. And so our personal responsibility as well as our organizational impact and the kind of social impact that Vancity has. So I think that the values I bring are an understanding of the personal and how that rolls up into the political and the organizational. Thank you.
Thank you, Sharon. Patrick?
Thank you. So I put environmental awareness right at the top of my list. This is the reason that I left Purolator and came to Modo. I believe we have an existential threat in front of us, and we don't address it nearly well enough. I can do something as an individual and change my own behavior. At Modo, I have the opportunity to leverage the behavior of 20,000, leverage and influence the behavior of 20,000 members and growing. That's really important to me. What I have learned through my time at Modo is also the importance of affordability and affordability of life here. It is the #1 reason that people join Modo, for a more affordable life. I took a shared ride recently back from Whistler to Vancouver, and the couple that was that owned the car and were giving me the ride told me they had to make a choice. It was a mortgage, a retirement, or a family. That's not on. And finally, it's been said, but diversity and inclusion. My experience tells me very clearly that you need a diverse group of people in a wide range of diversity around the table to make good choices. We have to enable enough people to be able to have a voice and be at those tables. Thank you.
Patrick, thank you. Joel?
Thanks. I think at the top of the list, I would say, as a person that values science, one of my values is evidence-based decision-making. And this comes into play when at a board table, when you're thinking strategically. I believe in addition to bringing the values to the table, once it's time to make the decision, it's actually looking at the evidence and the data to do that. I would also say that equity and inclusivity is a key value for me because it's important, even though we are in some ways in a more equitable world than a while ago, we still have a ways to go, and that's some of the other candidates have spoken about reconciliation and righting some of the wrongs of the past, and we still are not that far along on that path. And finally, I'd talk about cooperative values. I really do believe in the potential of co-ops. Our current economic system drives inequality and allows the rich to get richer, and that difference in wealth can cause social instability, can cause serious problems. And as a species, we have existential threats, like Patrick is saying, that are in front of us. And so co-ops are an alternate model that offers a lot of advantages that could help us face the challenges that are in front of us.
Thank you, Joel. And Mark?
Thank you. So my top 3 values, the first one would be sustainability. I gave up my career in corporate Canada 16 years ago to become a sustainability consultant, which I've done since then. I feel that as a baby boomer, my generation missed the boat on that, and so unfortunately. And so now it's up to us to play catch up. So I'm committed to that. And I really like what Vancity is doing in that area. And I could contribute to that. The next would be social equity. There is a growing gap between the rich and the poor. And I think that can be addressed through innovative financial practices such as Vancity is bringing to the table. Also, that includes, for me, respect for diversity and a culture of inclusiveness, which already is part of the Vancity values, and I think is fantastic and is a great model for the rest of the world. And finally, integrity. I think it's important to act with principle, to walk the talk, and to live our values, and that's something that I do and something that Vancity does, and I would really like to be part of making that even more prevalent in the world. Thanks.
Thank you, Mark. So while we wait for your questions to come in, I've got one for Mark. So this question comes from a Vancity employee for you, Mark. Of your attributes and experience, which skill do you think will be of most benefit to the Vancity board, and why?
I think my experience with digital transformation will be of most use. I have a PhD in computer science. I worked in IT for over 10 years. And I have led a number of major digital transformation projects in my career. For example, I led the development of TELUS TV, which was TELUS's the first generation of TELUS TV. And I've led major IT projects in other companies like Cogeco, relating to customer management systems and so on. So basically bring technology and telecommunications to bear to reduce operating costs and increase customer service. And I think that's important to Vancity as we face the threat that's posed by new online services that use Bitcoin and fintech technology to basically lower their operating costs, expand their services, and if we're not careful, could eat our lunch. So there you go.
Thank you, Mark. Now let's move on to some of our members submitted questions. So this question is for Joel. With your background in tech, what do you think Vancity needs to do in the digital space?
Thanks for the question. When I think about the types of challenges that an organization like Vancity faces in technology, I think to my own work where we're building systems that when you build major software, it needs to work, but it also needs to be scalable, and that's actually a huge challenge. And scalable and secure. And so it's about building things that as you go from 1,000 users to 1 million users, are they still going to stand up? And when the outage happened last fall, I like a lot of members, I was concerned about that, but I also felt a lot of empathy because I've been through those types of situations in my work, and it's not pleasant, and it's scary, and it has really given me a conviction to whenever I approach technical problems professionally, we have to think about what are the risks, and what can we do to add to our processes to ensure that it's going to work, it's going to be solid, and it's going to work every time. And when you're talking about a financial institution where we're keeping our money and where there's increasing threats with cybersecurity and so forth, that becomes all the more important. And it's that expertise that I really want to bring to the board.
That's great. Thank you, Joel. So our next question comes to us from another Vancity member. So this one is for Patrick. As a CEO of Modo, another local member-owned co-op, what business opportunities do you see between Vancity and other cooperatives?
So one of the co-op principles that is directly applicable here is principle number 6, co-ops helping co-ops. Vancity was fundamental in starting Modo some 22 years ago, providing some of the original capital to buy the first 2 cars and get going. And today we have nearly 700 cars on the road. There is a lot of room for doing more of that. I'm trying to support that this principle whenever I can, speaking to people that are starting up co-ops, speaking to other co-ops to exchange ideas. So what role could Vancity play? Vancity is at the center of the social purpose ecosystem here in Vancouver. There are quite a number of individuals and organizations that are working to make our region a better place to live. Vancity makes a direct contribution through funding, through education, and also indirectly supporting organizations like Groundswell, which is an alternative business school, providing people that will go and speak to the young entrepreneurs there and giving them ideas and providing education into the co-op model so that they have that as a choice as they're forming their own activity.
Thank you, Patrick. So our next question comes to us from one of our members, and this question is for Sharon. Sharon, how will you ensure member voices and concerns are heard, acknowledged, and listened to as a member of the Vancity board?
Great question. Thank you very much. Well, that's one of the important things about being on a board is always to be accessible to members. And I don't have any worry about having my contact information be available. I think, in fact, that's a requirement that when you're on a board of any size, that you make yourself accessible. It's the only way to stay in touch. And I think that that's not just to members who are using our financial institution, but also to Vancity staff who are members, as well as to make sure that we're accessible for them. And in my role with a province-wide organization, I think it's become quite well known that if you live in Terrace or Haida Gwaii or the Kootenays, you can email me and I'll be responsive to you. So with the social media tools that we have now, I look forward to being in touch with people who want to have a conversation.
Thank you, Sharon. For those of you just tuning in, this is a live Q&A with our 2019 Board of Directors candidates. You can leave a question for the candidates in the comments section below, and we will ask as many as we can. So our next question is from one of our members, and this is for Shawn. Shawn, which accomplishment during your tenure at Mountain Equipment Co-op are you most proud of?
I think there are a number of things that we've done during my time there that I'm quite proud of. Probably two that stand out are our deliberate shift to move to building design when we were building new stores that was either LEED Platinum or beyond, based on standards that we developed and applied ourselves. And it changed how we thought about our footprint as a retailer in terms of our store presence. The other part that relates to that has been our emphasis on and being a leader in the retail sector on the outdoor retail side, is the impact of product and the environmental footprint of product from all the way to end of life. and looking at how are materials sourced, where are they sourced from, what are the chemicals that are going into them, what do they look like as they break down, and how do we actually build product and make product available to our members that not only meets their technical needs and the activities that they're doing, but also can make them proud to wear because they know that the environmental footprint of that product is actually been well thought through and compared to other alternatives. And that value that we've baked into so much of what we do at MEC is something that we know our members appreciate. It's something that allows us to talk to other businesses about in terms of also influencing what other companies choose to do with their products as well.
Great. Thank you, Sean. So our next question comes to us from one of our members, and it's for Rita. Rita, what are you most proud of from the time that you've served on the board, and what's next?
Thank you. I believe that I'm most proud of the work that we are starting to do around climate. I've learned a lot about how deliberate the process is within Vancity. Vancity is an incredible agent of transformation, and its process is very deliberative. It sets a vision, and it seeks through engagement with its members and experts where needed to understand how that change will unfold in many, many different spaces. And so for me, I'm very excited by the fact that we've got a climate change working group, that we are starting to move beyond in a very active way, looking at our footprint and moving beyond trying to reduce our footprint to looking at how we can support our members in the changes that they need to make, to looking at how we can truly support the green economy, invest in the green economy, how we can invest in the goods and services required to strengthen that green economy, how we can support our members so that they can access those goods and services in an affordable and accessible way. So I'm very excited by that work that we're doing.
Excellent. Thank you, Rita. So our next question comes to us from one of our members, and this is for Stefan. Stefan, what initiative do you see Vancity pursuing that is not already pursued?
Thank you. It's a great question. And I'm sort of split on how to answer this one. On the one hand, I'm very inspired by the work that's done in recent years by Vancity on the affordable housing file. Like, this is sort of the issue in our province, the question of people being able to get homes they can afford. But also I've been very impressed by the work that Vancity is doing in launching the Fast and Fair Loans program. I think that is something that we should be looking at. Where in our industry, in the financial industry, are there products being offered or players in the field where there's a predatory aspect to it, or an aspect to it that isn't serving communities, that isn't helping people to improve their financial well-being and their futures, and how can we offer the alternative to that, right? And I think that loan program is a prime example of a credit union doing that in I would say one of the most predatory sections of the financial industry, and giving that alternative, and there could be others that we can explore along those lines as well. So thank you.
That's great. Thank you, Stefan. So our next question is from a Vancity staff member, and it's for NIKI. With the rise of the MeToo movement and equal pay for equal work, do you think Vancity is doing enough in the community to support gender equality?
That's a really good question. Thank you for that. I think Vancity, you could always do more. It's interesting because I sit on a board where there's only one man right now. And I've traveled internationally and locally to speak about that and been invited to conferences, and people are shocked. But there's a lot of work to be done when it comes to that. We have Vancity supports a living wage. We support more affordable childcare. We're out in the community trying to talk about the issues that are the gaps between us actually getting to equity, and also working hard within our organization to do that. I have to give kudos to our very committed and wonderful team of staff that I'm so proud to work with, I know at the board level, and to see that they go into the communities and they talk about issues, and they're always at the forefront of dialogue. And that's been one of our most cherished, I think, treasures here, is the people that work here. Can we do more? Obviously, I think we can all do more to continue the conversation and to lead in it. But I am proud of the strides that we have made in terms of demonstrating what it's like to have an organization that is largely led by women. Yeah.
Thank you, Nikki. So a reminder, if you're just joining us now, to vote anytime during tonight's broadcast at vancity.com/elections or on the Vancity app on your mobile device. Voting is open until April 18th, 2019 at 4 p.m. Pacific Daylight Time. Let's take some more questions. So our question is coming from a member on Facebook for all of the candidates. How do you balance profitability with social causes? Let's start with Nikki.
I think that question really gets to the heart of who we are as an organization, so I want to thank you for it. Our first and foremost job is to make sure that members and their investments in our institution and the money that we hold is well stewarded and taken care of and thriving. But the unique part about Vancity is the next step that we take, is that we say that our profits that we receive from those investments and the people's trust by giving their money will go towards an impact of the community. And that means that 30% of our profits go back into the communities that we serve. And I would challenge any other institution across the world that could say that. Maybe there is somebody out there, I don't know. But I'm really proud of that. So how do we balance the two? Is that we continue to actually not being hypocritical and standing up to what we believe in, and if we believe in member well-being, if we believe in changing our economy, then we need to put our investments where those thoughts are and those beliefs are. So that question really goes to the heart of who we are, and I think that's a constant thing that we as board members need to be asking ourselves. So thanks for the question.
Thank you, Nikki. Stefan?
Thank you. Yeah, that is a great question. And I think that these two concepts are not at all in conflict, the concept of helping community and of profit and profitability. As Nikki mentioned, 30% of net is invested back into the community. That's huge, right? That's a tremendous investment into the communities of our members and into their well-being. And it's my belief that engagement in the community and that investment back is also how we drive further membership, how we drive interest in and engagement in Vancity, and therefore more business and profitability. Co-ops, credit unions, and all co-ops are about people getting together to do something positive, right? To do something to basically to do something for their members and their communities that can be done better through cooperation than through a strictly for-profit model. And Vancity does it well and has the potential to grow and do it more. And so I think these are two things that drive each other and are not in conflict.
Thank you, Stefan. Rita?
Thank you. Yeah, I would agree that they're not in conflict. When I was on the board of Mountain Equipment, there was a healthy debate about whether or not you could have a triple bottom line, whether you could support environmental, social, and bottom line financial profitability, and of course you can. For me, Vancity's the social cause that we're all committed to is creating healthy communities. That's what our members want. And so our job is to put our assets, members' assets, at the service of our communities. So how do we do that? We invest in our local entrepreneurs. We invest in the community organizations that we all rely on. We invest in our environment. And this is, to me, the obvious way that we profit and that our members profit from the investments that we make. So I agree that, we have the 30% that gets reinvested in a number of organizations and in our members' equity, as well as the fact that we make choices with the money that we have to lend to certain organizations and support our communities.
Thank you, Rita. SHAWN?
Yeah, I mean, this is at the heart of what it means to be part of and to be a values-driven or purpose-driven organization. When there is a collective commitment to ensure that both the health of the organization can reinforce the health of the community through any of a number of different ways, that flows through into how the organization is structured, how it considers its finances, the kinds of choices that the board makes, the kinds of choices that management feels empowered to make. All of these things start with what do we collectively agree is important, members, organization, board, and so on. And you see that manifested in different co-ops in different ways, and it entirely depends on the community of interests that have come together. And Vancity is doing it at a significant scale. And I think also what we've seen more recently is being also more selective and focused in its priorities, which I think is also important because you can take that pot and spread it too thin, and you can minimize the impact that you can have. And Vancity's been providing focus there, which I think is really important. And I think that that needs to be part of that ongoing conversation and collective commitment.
Thank you, Sean. Sharon?
Well, again, some brilliant answers from my colleagues around the table. I think really Vancity's brand, Make Good Money, really sums up how that fine line between profitability and investing back into the communities has been achieved by this organization. And for somebody who works in that social impact space, in childcare advocacy, I've seen firsthand how the investment of profits back into community makes a tangible difference, whether it's in conferences or women's equality events or International Women's Day or trans rights or a long list of the ways that Vancity shows up in community to support real people doing really good work. And even the staff who work in Vancity's community investment department, when I think about their continuous participation in the Poverty Reduction Coalition, when I think about the participation through the living wage, through the way that there's fossil fuel divestment, when I think about the choices that Vancity is making, both to support communities and the health of not just our communities with people, but our environmental health as well. There's so much good work that's being done by Vancity. I think one of the reasons we're all around this table is we want to make sure that that good work continues and that progressive approach continues. Thank you.
Thank you, Sharon. Patrick?
Thank you. Well, there's clearly no conflict between these two objectives. And I say clearly from looking into the world of impact investing. If you look at the number of choices out there, the number of organizations that are values-based and are really great investment opportunities at the same time, I think the case is absolutely proven. As individuals, we have we have many choices, but we have two important choices we can make to impact what happens in the world. We can do that with our consumer dollars, and we can do that with our investing dollars. And we have all different ideas about what return on investment for our investing dollars means. Doing that here in Vancity is very attractive to a very large number of people, 500,000 members and counting. And one has an opportunity to make a return that isn't only financial, but in terms of what's happening in the community around us. So I think there are really good choices out there. The allocation of capital is probably one of the most important roles that Vancity has to play, to take our invested capital and put it into the right places to make the right kind of returns in the community.
Thank you, Patrick. And Joel?
Yeah, thank you. I agree with what's already been said, that there really isn't a conflict here. I mean, profitability is important. It's got to keep Vancity healthy, strong, and relevant for many, many years to come. But the thing that's always impressed me about Vancity, and it's why I joined, and it's why I've always been proud to be a member, is its core purpose. You know, to redefine wealth and to live that out, and to lead by example, and to take those dollars, that 30% of net, and invest that and to live out that purpose. The really great thing, though, is the scale. I've been involved in other organizations, and they have similar values, and they can take a percentage of profits and do good things with those. But when you look at an organization the size of Vancity and what it can actually accomplish, it's inspiring. It makes me want to be more involved. It makes me want to run for the board and to be a part of saying, what we've got this success, we've got this profit, what can we do with this, and what can we really change?
Thank you, Joel and Mark.
Yeah, it is a great question. I think that Vancity is in a very good position. As a co-op, we're freed from the discipline or the obligation to always focus on making profits. We are, as I see it as a co-op, we have the luxury of saying that money, we have to make money, but it's a means to an end, and the end is serving our members in the communities that they live in and work in. And so therefore, there is no conflict. We have to be careful about how we allocate our funds, how we make loans and so on. But I think the real answer is that by continuing to drive hard on increasing the amount of social impact assets we have so that we are actually creatively and actively involved in financing people who are doing good in the community, whether it's environmentally or socially or hopefully both, that's how we can really leverage the capital that our members have entrusted us with and also really continue to make an expanding difference in the world. So I say the two are complementary, and people that will actually bring even more members to us that we can make an even bigger difference. Great question. Thanks.
That's great. Thanks, Mark. So this question is from a member on Facebook, and it's for all the candidates. As Vancity's demographics trend younger, there will be an ever-increasing demand for digital products and services. If you were to be a part of the board, what would you do to ensure that Vancity is staying on the top of members' digital wants and needs? Let's start with Mark this time.
That's a great question. Another great question. I think the key answer is listening to that younger generation. So I noted that in the annual report, Vancity has already established a digital members council, I believe it's called. So I don't know exactly what it is, but it sounds to me like we're already actively asking those kinds of people what they want, what they're looking for. So we have to keep doing that. I'm the father of 3 millennials. I can tell you that they all hate to go into branches. They like to do everything online. They will only go into a branch at the last resort. But they do appreciate the fact that when there's something tricky, they can go and talk to someone in person or talk to someone on the phone. So I think it's finding a balance between offering as wide a repertoire of digital services as we can, but still preserving the in-branch experience for those things where it's necessary, even for millennials.
That's great. Thank you, Mark. Joel?
That's a great question. I think clearly the move to digital services is happening, and it's happening very fast. And one of the things, everybody around this table and a lot of people who are members of Vancity are at least in part members because it's a credit union. But during my time on the board at Modo, we had to come to terms with, as Modo was growing really fast, that it was important not to lose sight to focus on the core product, that there were definitely people who are using your service because it works for them, because they like it and it fits their lifestyle. And the fact that you're governed as a co-op or not, they might not know, and even if they did, it really isn't that important to them. So in addition to living out our values and being the best of a credit union, it's important to understand that the products we put out there need to be competitive. And in the digital space, and in the new channels that people are accessing their financial services, this can be really challenging. And so it's very important that we be honest with ourselves about what the larger banks are doing, and they're expending a lot of resources to build those platforms, and to say, what do we have to do to stay relevant and to stay competitive?
Thank you, Joel. Patrick?
This is beyond doubt one of the greatest challenges that Vancity faces today. So the very short answer I will give is overinvest. Spend more money, spend more time, put more effort into great digital products. Now, having said that, it's pretty obvious when Vancity is competing against much larger, deeper-pocketed competitors that one can't compete on every front. So it's really important to get a good sense of where do we find a solid alignment between the needs of members in the digital world, and not just doing things online or on apps that we were doing already, but new things, solving solutions or bringing solutions to problems that maybe didn't exist previously. How do we do that and pick the right places to do it and stay in alignment with the core values of Vancity? I think it's really important. So short answer, invest more money, bring good people on board, watch what's happening in the world, make good choices in terms of where to compete. Is it going to be in the investing world, in the lending space, in other aspects of the relationship with Vancity?
Thank you, Patrick. Sharon.
Yeah, so Vancity absolutely has to stay relevant in the digital space. That is where people expect to be able to access banking now. At the same time, I think it's really important not to lose sight of the importance of customer service. When people want to speak to somebody or go into a branch, they expect customer service to be excellent. And so we're balancing all the time the folks who still want to use branches or access on the phone or when they need to, and yet to be 100% on and available digitally all the time. The Make Good Sense surveys that are done through Vancity members can participate to share their advice and their expertise back to Vancity is significant. And I, like Patrick, I'm a keen supporter of Vancity thinking about not just replicating the bank experience, the top 5 big banks, because I wonder why anybody actually wants to still give money to traditional banks when they can choose to do their banking with a credit union, because there is the ability to be more nimble, I think, and to meet the needs. For instance, meeting the needs of people with their credit cards, for young people who might need some support and new techniques for how to manage credit. I think that's a space that we can look at using digital tools for that doesn't happen now. Thank you.
Thank you, Sharon. Shawn?
Yeah, I really sort of align with what Joel and Patrick have said. I think the key here is not to try to beat the competition flat out. I don't think that's an option for us for reasons that have already been discussed. But nor is that, I think, desirable. I think the key is to zero in on those key spaces where we have the right alignment between what our members of different ages really seem to need and want, and then really invest and make sure that we are delivering on that promise in as aggressive a way as the big banks tend to do. So match them in execution, if not in actual product. And I think it all comes back to that excellence in customer service, however we're going to deliver that service. And right now we do make that choice between serving people in branch and online. But there's no question that to continue to be competitive and to continue to actually serve our members well in that digital space, it's going to require significant investment, and it's going to require potentially a shift in our approach in terms of how we execute those offerings and making sure that they really are robust and top-notch.
That's great. Thank you, Shawn. Rita?
Yeah, thank you. I have 2 kids, and they are frequently telling me about new technologies that they are using or have heard of in the banking sector. And I know that young people are looking for convenience in their banking, and my kids are no exception. And I do believe that we need to make the investment to provide that convenience. And we can't do it alone, as my colleagues have said. We need to collaborate with other credit unions, with the fintech, financial technology sector to provide that. But I think another challenge for us is how to actually provide, bring our values into the digital space. We know that young people are values aligned, highly values aligned with Vancity. And they will want to make decisions around how their money is spent, and they want to know that their money is being invested ethically. And we need to find technological tools that will allow them to make those sorts of choices. And so I think we have a real opportunity there. I think we need to explore how to use technology to allow millennials to support each other through crowdfunding opportunities, through the kind of branding that they can, and awareness that they can offer each other. So I think we do need to invest, and we need to collaborate to do that.
Thank you, Rita. Stefan?
Thank you. I would say that I agree with many of the comments that my colleagues have made, but would add that we need to watch and listen and learn, right? We need to be staying on top of digital banking technology while also considering the needs and impacts on our valued staff, and not losing that ability for that direct human-to-human contact that many of our members really still value. And we need to be present where our members are. Vancity does phenomenal work. It is engaged in great initiatives, offers great products and services. And our members need to see that, and our potential members need to see that as well, the folks who could become Vancity members. And we need to promote to them the value of cooperative organizations and cooperative values. So we need to be visible where they are, which includes social media and other digital spaces, and keeping on top of those as well. Thank you.
Stefan, thank you. And Nikki.
Yeah, so I also agree with a lot of the comments, but I will add one thing, which is pace. I think that we have done a lot of pretty successful online, like the Fair and Fast Loan, which is a new application that really shows who we are. And there are certain things that we've put out in the world that we can be proud of, and things are changing all the time. So I know when I've sat on the table around the board table the last 3 years, we've been really pulling at these strategic decisions about where to invest and how to invest. And I strongly believe in what I would commit to if I was reelected on the board, is to make sure we're representing who we are all the time online. I think there is definitely a credibility that we bring to social impact investing, fair and fast, all the things that we do to make the community better. That's our sweet spot. Digitally, you keep up with services that are being demanded by people, and then you find those things that really showcase who you are to bring people in a digital space. And I think there's a lot of potential there for Vancity. And actually, we could look at it as daunting, or we could look at it as exciting. And, I think kudos to the staff team that have been able to develop this over time and been working hard on this transition and to figure out where we invest and where we don't. And I think we're picking up the pace now. Thank you.
Thank you, Nikki. For those of you just tuning in, this is a live Q&A with our 2019 Board of Directors candidates. You can leave a question for the candidates in the comment section of this post, and we'll ask as many as we can. So our next question comes to us by email for Nikki. If you were to be reelected for a second term on the Vancity Board of Directors, is there anything you'd do differently?
Another good question. I've had such an enriching and full experience so far on the board. And part of it has been the collegial relationship that I've had with my colleagues, and all of the kind of intense interactions that we've had in the decision-making we've had to have around this table that we're sitting at. I can't obviously speak to particular decisions and what was deliberated against on the board table. I think probably way earlier on when I first got elected the first time around, I would have maybe connected or found an avenue to connect with members, which I think I did later on. But I think there was so much to learn in the first few months that it kind of took my time. So I definitely do that now, and it's an important part of my role as a board. And I guess that would be one thing that I would have done earlier on.
That's great. Thank you, Nikki. So our next question comes to us through Facebook for Stefan. What's a lesson you've learned from serving on the Executive Council for BC Federation of Labour, and how will you bring what you've learned with you and apply it to Vancity?
Great, thank you. Yeah, that's a good question. I think that, there's a lot of different lessons that I could use for this answer. I think that I'll, though, return to my earlier comments about, the ability to bring people together of diverse backgrounds, political views, interests for a common goal, right? And, speaks to our model as a cooperative organization. We are an organization of something like 525,000 members. That's a lot of people, a lot of diverse people. And I think that, the fact that through our democratic structures, we're able to, to make the kinds of decisions and do the kind of work that we do as an organization in the community that's so impactful and important is an impressive feat. And that's something that I've learned how to navigate both on the BC Fed Executive Council, but on, as president of the Labour Council and in all of the roles in community and in labor organizations that I've worked in over the years, is the ability to bring people together, to find the common ground, and to try to mold consensus. Thank you.
Thank you, Stefan. So our next question to us is from a member for RITA. Vancity is often voted as one of Canada's top employers. I'm curious to know how you've looked after the needs of employees in past roles you've had.
I have served in fairly small organizations. I've been the executive director of a number of small organizations where and in the nonprofit community. And as many people know, the experience of being a staff person in a small organization is one often of burnout, deep commitment, and an effort to try and do everything all the time for everyone. So in my role, I think what I have tried to do best is really understand what is our vision and what is our strategic plan, and how do the choices and the business plans and the decisions that we make about what we want to do fit with that strategic plan, so that we are sure that we are not accepting every opportunity that comes our way. And I know staff at Vancity are incredibly committed. Some have been here for 25, 30 years, which speaks very highly of this organization and their commitment to it. And Vancity is very engaged as a result of those members in many activities in the community. I think we need to understand what our focus is and help staff make the decisions to stay committed to that focus.
Thank you, Rita. So our next question is from a member for SHAWN. You seem to be incredibly active in the community as part of the executive team for World Wildlife Fund and the board of MEC. What drives you to be so engaged in these causes and organizations, and why Vancity?
So just a point of clarification, it's been a while since I worked at World Wildlife Fund. But yeah, whether it was WWF, where I was the Vice President of Communications and Human Resources, or whether it was been my time at Mountain Equipment Co-op, I really enjoy being a part of organizations, first of all, where there's that alignment to my own personal values, but then also where it's about the people inside the organization, from members and grassroots supporters all the way through staff and to senior management and the board. It's that passion. The passion for a cause, the passion for a particular purpose, and the fundamental belief that by coming to work every day, there's a difference to be made and there's a contribution to be made. And organizations that I've been a part of, I've been fortunate, either because they were like this when I got there, or I helped make them that way as a result of my time there, have also been about making sure that all people have an equal opportunity to participate in that, and all people feel like they have an opportunity to own a piece of that impact in the community. And that inspires me. And that goes back to the values conversation that we had at the very beginning of this broadcast. That collaborative part and the inclusiveness part, I think, is where that magic starts, and it's really special to be a part of.
Thank you, Sean. Our next question is by email for SHARON. How, if at all, does your commitment to women and families with the $10 a day childcare campaign impact the work you'd hope to do with Vancity?
Well, thank you for that question. So my work with the $10 a day childcare campaign for quite a few years, and representing the needs of children and particularly women and families and community, is really ingrained in everything I do. As a feminist, thinking about gender equality, thinking about the impact of real families in all the decision making that happens. And I think that's one of the qualities that I would bring to the board is a real family. So whether it's single parents, whether it's families with two parents who are struggling to meet the needs of their families, whether it's a family with one parent staying at home. So I think that I bring that real lived experience to the board, and as the board makes decisions, thinking about how that impacts and asking staff the questions of why decisions are being made, and expecting that staff have the expertise, but asking what the impact is for our members and our staff. I think Vancity is too good not to get better. And so when we think about staff engagement, when we think about customer service to our members, we think about the decisions that are made at the board level that impact those real people in their everyday lives. And that's something that I think I carry with me all the time.
Thank you, Sharon. So our next question is from Facebook for Patrick. In a 2015 interview with Air Canada's Enroute magazine, you had mentioned always listen to the customer as your top tip for businesses. Is this something you'll put into practice if elected as a Vancity board member? Can you share examples of listening to the customer from the leadership roles you've held at Purolator and Modo?
Yes, and thank you for reading the article, whomever submitted that question. Absolutely, that was true in 2015, and that is still true today. I would say it's probably even more true today than ever, given the nature of a cooperative and the role that the member or the member owner has in their relationship with the organization. I see that in my role at Modo. We are directly responsible to the people that are using the products and services of the organization. There is no intermediary, there is no shareholder somewhere else potentially disconnected. Same is true at Vancity. So how do we practice that at Modo? With a lot of outreach, with annual survey, with surveys that we're doing pretty regularly on all kind of topics. Would you invest in community bonds to help the co-op to further its mission? What do you think about this kind of car? Is the mix of cars correct for you? I think same thing at Vancity. I believe Vancity does a pretty good job of this already today with some really good outreach. I would certainly encourage more of that. It's the voice of the member that matters at the end of the day, and we must listen.
That's great. Thank you, Patrick. So our next question is by email for Joel. Where do you see Vancity in the next 1 to 3 years, and how do you fit into this vision?
That's a great question. I'll say two things. First, clearly there's been a lot of work that's been done from management and staff on the technology transition last year, and that was in large part to build a base to be able to build new digital services, and that is work that clearly must continue and then be fully realized, and so that we can have competitive digital services on top of that on a stable platform. The other thing I would say, I started my company 13 years ago. We've grown to 200 employees, and really the thing that drives me personally in doing that is creating a meaningful place to work for our employees. I want to think that the people that work for us 10, 20 years at their retirement party look back and think of their time at Hothead as a really special time in their life, a place where they loved coming to work, they loved the people they worked with, they felt challenged, they felt like it supported their personal and professional growth. And they felt that also when they needed it, they had the support from the company. And so Vancity's won awards for being a great place to work, but I think, as Rita alluded to, it's something we can always do better. And so I'm really motivated as a potential director to make it a priority to invest in Vancity's employees and to really make Vancity a fantastic place to work.
Thank you, Joel. So our next question is from a Vancity staff member for Mark. Which 3 telecommunications industry boards did you sit on, and how will your experience on these boards add to the Vancity board?
Oh, okay. One was the Advanced Broadcasting Systems of Canada, which was an industry association board looking at how we could bring digital transmission, digital television to Canada in a collaborative way. So it was a collaborative model, and I have a lot of experience in working with industry partners, which I think is something critical to how we can move forward. Also, the other one is CPAC, the Canadian Parliamentary Channel, and so I was on the board of CPAC for a number of years, and that was about bringing to Canadians being able to watch Parliament in action. So that's in a sense that's addressing inclusion and making accessibility and transparency something that I know that is an important part of our values. So that prepares me in that sense. And then I was also on the board of Canal Premiere, which is a French language pay-per-view service. And the thing that was interesting about that, again, and I think it qualifies me to contribute here, is that we actually that company that organization, we were a collaboration between a number of originally competitive players in the broadcasting industry in Quebec, and we came together, and I was a key part of that to offer a service together for the benefit of customers. So I would bring that strategic partnership approach to the Vancity board if elected. Thank you.
Thank you, Mark. So a reminder that you can vote at any time during tonight's broadcast at vancity.com/elections or on the Vancity app on your mobile device. Voting is open until April 18th, 2019 at 4 p.m. Pacific Daylight Time. So let's take some more questions. So our next question is an email question for all of the candidates. How can Vancity support businesses and individuals in becoming greener? Let's start with Mark.
Oh, that's a great question. Thank you. Well, I think one key area that I think would be very important is if we look at how we can make it easier for businesses and individuals to invest in retrofitting their homes and offices to be greener. Only about 2% of the building stock gets turned over a year, so it means that because the average life of a building is about 50 years. So if we're really going to impact the amount of emissions that the buildings put into the air, we really have to have an answer for existing building stock. And so I think innovative lending policies in that area would be fantastic. For example, one I think it's very promising. A lot of green technology for buildings has a 20-year payback. So if you're not sure that you're going to own a building for that long, how can you justify the investment? So there are financing techniques that have been developed and applied in the U.S. and the UK successfully, where you have a loan or a mortgage that's tied to the building. So if ownership changes, it goes with it. So that way, when you make the investment, you know that it's going to be you're going to get the payback over the lifetime. I would also think we should look at innovative financing for electric vehicles, again, both for business and individuals. So basically looking at ways that we can enable people and businesses to purchase these new technologies and take full advantage of them. Thanks.
Thank you, Mark. Joel?
Yeah, I think of a few things. One is I think Vancity's always done an excellent job at member education, and one of the things about being more green and environmental causes, a lot of people want to make a personal difference. They want to help, and it's important to understand the scale of the changes you can make in your life and where the biggest impacts are going to be. So that's one thing. The other is, as a financial institution, offering opportunities for impact investing and ethical investing, as Vancity has done for a long time, is something that I think people who are Vancity members look to the credit union to provide. And then the third would be supporting local organizations that Vancity can make clear to their members that are really are making a difference. So I think of Vancity's support over the years of Modo, and giving exposure and access to those, and then support to those businesses and co-ops can really help by encouraging members to use them.
Thank you, Joel. Patrick?
So some great answers already provided, so I will try to maybe expand a little bit and go a little bit deeper on at least one topic, impact investing. I think as individuals, we all want to do good things with our money. There is room to do better. There is room, in my opinion, to create an index fund, so an index of ethical companies. This is something that could be done on a bigger scale, could be done certainly province-wide, if not countrywide, at the level of co-op of co-ops, and create opportunities at low cost for individuals to make good choices. Not choices in individual companies necessarily, because there's some risk associated with that, but good diversified choices, as one would find, for example, in an ETF or a fund that was made available at relatively low cost. I think I will also speak to the education point already raised. There is a lot of assistance that could be provided, especially to smaller companies, around creating the business case for investment in better technology that will reduce consumption of resources, not just in terms of fuel and energy, but in the circular economy and reuse of items.
That's great. Thank you, Patrick. Sharon?
Thanks so much. So again, on the theme of education, I think that there's a very clear role for Vancity to play in sharing with its members some of the new opportunities to be greener. So for instance, carbon offsets. So for when people are traveling for personal or business reasons, helping members understand what the value is of carbon offsets. I don't think even something as basic as that is well understood. Absolutely, we know that the province is looking to phase out gasoline-powered vehicles. And so really, I think there's so much room for Vancity to step up and support members who are interested in hybrid vehicles and electric vehicles in the short term, not just the long term. I think it's a big space that there's a lot of room for Vancity to have impact. And of course, retrofitting both homes and businesses, lots of opportunity. For somebody like me who lives in a housing cooperative, lots of opportunity to work with the housing cooperative movement to retrofit homes. So yeah, lots of opportunity in this area.
Thank you, Sharon. Sean?
Yeah, I think I would put my remarks in the context of the climate change report that was released just earlier this week, and which unfortunately, because of other political events, has not necessarily taken as or been as dominant a part of the conversation over the last several days. I think there's an opportunity for Vancity to do a rethink and a reset on the magnitude and scope of the climate change challenge, and to publicly articulate what does Green Vancity 3.0, 4.0 start to look like. And as a result of doing that, continue what it's been doing all along, which is leading by example. Carbon neutrality from a few years ago that we've continued, branch infrastructure that also makes our branches more efficient, and doing the things that demonstrate the co-ops, the credit unions' commitment to small footprint. Also to use and continue to use Vancity's reach and influence to broadcast and promote innovation in this new context. To Patrick's point, and others have raised this as well, the idea of impact investing and being targeted about how we do that. But just generally, what are we doing to get out in front, and then helping other organizations in the community at large understand how they too can get out in front in light of what we now know is a very different climate future than what we originally thought was in front of us.
Thank you, Sean. Rita?
Yeah, thank you. So how do we help our businesses and individual members go greener? I think we have to be bold. We have to be much bolder with the story that we have to tell. We have a story to tell based on our past experience, based on the work that we have done already to lower our footprint. I think we could be telling that story much more articulately and broadly. I think that we need to explore differential credit, possibly giving preferential credit rates to green businesses. We need to find a way to feature those businesses that are innovating in this space, those members that are innovating and that are taking risks. I think we need to be able to feature them and allow, give access to offer access of their story to our members. I think we have to also enable and empower our staff to be able to have those conversations with very strong tools. I think they need to be able to have those conversations with members in ways that they feel supported. And with tools that support them.
Thank you, Rita. Stefan?
Thank you. Yeah. I mean, climate change is, of course, the biggest threat that's facing our communities, and so it's absolutely critical that we be part of playing a role in reversing that. But the good news is every problem that we face, climate change included, is made by humans. And so humans working together cooperatively can change that as well. And in this sense, Vancity is really well positioned to play that role, being a cooperative organization. So of course, offering opportunities for impact investment in green initiatives, finding ways to support green technology in the projects that we're involved in. So for example, in housing projects that we're funding, how can we make those projects greener? How can we make those more sustainable and ensure that green technology is part of those. How can we promote public transit use and the use of electric vehicles and that sort of infrastructure? And how do we make our branches greener and more sustainable as well? There's places in the world where whole skyscrapers have been built that are self-generating power, right? This technology is out there. It's just not common yet. We need to find it and find ways to use it. We also have to be thinking about a just transition for workers as well when we do this, so that nobody's left behind as we move forward into that new green economy. And I think we can be part of that discussion as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Stefan. Nikki.
So it's been a real honor and a privilege over the last, I think, year to serve as co-chair of our climate justice working group from the board. And I can say that, first of all, I could spend an hour probably talking about all the things that Vancity has done and is continuing to do to be leaders. But the exciting thing, and I think members can be very excited about this, is that we are going to be stepping into a phase where we're hoping for and working towards bold leadership in an international stage. And a national stage, more so than we've already done. And that's looking at every aspect of what we do and how we can actually meet the challenge that faces everybody, which is the daunting impacts of climate change that are coming. And I want to add another aspect to this discussion, which is climate justice. That is something that we need to work into every aspect of the work that we're doing, and that is that climate change will have a disproportionate impact on different people. And that is something that we, as an organization that's living up to our mandate, need to also be actively talking about how we can impact change on that and how we speak up about it. And so I'm really excited about the work that we're doing and embarking on right now, and I'd be honored to continue if I was elected again. Thank you.
That's great. Thank you. So our next question is an email question for all of the candidates. Could candidates speak about their vision for growth of the organization, specifically total assets and membership? Thank you. Nikki?
Good question. So, my vision for growth for Vancity is to make sure we understand what we do well and to be more bold and vocal about stepping into the world with that. I think there's amazing opportunity with the fact that millennials and a lot of people that are coming to us are interested in being part of an organization that speaks up for their values, that they can see is represented in the work that we do and not hypocritically. And we as an organization are not. We have an amazing amount of integrity when it comes to standing behind what we believe in. And I think there's an amazing opportunity for us to speak more boldly about that to our community. I always get, and I know like my colleagues at the board table probably are sick of me hearing me say this, but I see companies that are marketing their commitment to things that we know they're not actually committed to. And we as Vancity, we have integrity. We walk the talk, and so I believe that the next phase of our reaching out to people, both digitally and just with our membership growth, has to be about telling and being better at who we are and communicating who we are, and offering the products that show that we act accordingly. Thank you.
Thank you, Nikki. Stefan?
Thank you. And of course, on the one hand, we attract more members and therefore more assets by having great products, great services, and all of those things. But I really believe that it's our cooperative model and values that is the real driver of potential membership growth. And I think we do a pretty good job of communicating that out and bringing that to the general public, but I think it could be always done better. We always need to look at ways of doing that and new ways of doing that using new technology and so forth. The values of the cooperative movement, I think, align very strongly with the values of young generations, millennials, Generation Z folks. I think that in mass numbers around the world, young people are out there standing up for, calling for change and standing up for the kind of world that they want to see, and looking for alternatives. And we present such an alternative, cooperative model that is not based purely on the pursuit of profit. And so I think that is truly how we reach out to the younger generations and bring them in and continue to build that membership. And by doing so, and by increasing those assets, we also increase our ability to continue to do the great work that we do and to do it more. Thank you.
Thank you, Stefan. Rita?
I think we have a challenge ahead of us. Nikki has pointed it out. There are a number of other financial institutions who have a much larger marketing budget than Vancity does. And their reach is far more extensive than ours is. And yet we walk the talk. We are the ones that are working hand in hand with our community members, addressing the needs that they have. And I think our main challenge is to tell our story. I know that British Columbians share the values that Vancity expresses. British Columbians care about each other. We care about reconciliation. We care about the climate. We care about innovation. We are members, and there are so many people out there who want to invest ethically. They want to invest in affordable housing. They want to invest and support Indigenous entrepreneurship. And yet they don't come to Vancity. So the challenge that we have, particularly as we move into the digital space, and we know people aren't coming into the branches, we know we can't have those one-on-one conversations with them. The challenge for us is to learn, how do we engage them? How do we tell our story in that particular space?
Thank you, Rita. Sean?
Yeah, where are we at now? We're at something in the neighborhood of $26.1 billion in assets under management now, and a membership of about 524,000. And we're able to do with that a certain amount that you see in front of us and in the communities now. What would be the ideal number of assets and the associated number of members? I actually don't know the answer to that. But I think to arbitrarily pick a number and then just drive after it is not the way to manage growth either. I think that, as others have alluded, if we continue to take a very values-based, principled approach to growth for the purposes of a very specific set of objectives that we have in terms of the kind of impact that we want to have in communities and the kind of things that we want to achieve, then we'll be much further ahead in terms of how we actually move our way and advance our way through to that to those targets. We have targets expressed right now in the 2020 strategic plan. We're a little bit off pace, if I'm reading my numbers right. So let's build from there, but in that principled, measured way, and not pursue targets for the sake of pursuing targets.
That's great. Thank you, Sean. Sharon?
Yeah, I agree with Sean. I don't see the value in just arbitrarily setting a number and saying we must grow at a certain percentage each year, without doing some taking stock of making sure that we're serving our current members well. And there has been a decline in some member satisfaction, particularly around the change in the banking system, where people move from having account numbers to having relationship numbers, and people still not being clear from the folks I've talked to around what is their relationship number, and not a lot of clarity on that. So I would rather us focus on improving service to our current members, and particularly, as Rita said, how do we online, for people who never go into branches and know that we've got wonderful tellers working, customer service folks working there, how do they know online that we are such a great ethical organization? For people who are participating in community events, they'll see the Vancity signs everywhere. For people who work, particularly in the not-for-profit sector, they'll see Vancity shows up everywhere. But for members who are maybe business members who they've joined Vancity because we're the closest bank on a corner, who don't necessarily know the depth and breadth of the kinds of the investments that Vancity makes in community. So I think there's some work to do to solidify and improve and in some cases get back to some targets that we've slipped a little bit on, and start to build out a little bit. And there's been talk about how many more communities does Vancity expand into. Folks in Nanaimo have said to me, I wish there was a Vancity branch here. And so how much expansion is the right expansion? How much solidifying the expertise and the excellence that we have now before we get any bigger? Some of the questions I have.
Thank you, Sharon. Patrick?
Okay, so I'm going to take a somewhat different perspective. So I am a proponent for growth, not for ego, but for impact. There are just too many big and important issues out there today for us to slow down and not go faster. I believe, and I've held this belief and seen it in practice for a very long time, that you get what you measure. Setting targets, setting ambitious targets, is a catalyst for innovation, and is a catalyst for doing the things that will attract more people to Vancity and allow Vancity to do more things in the community. I think here we find, in parallel to growth, we find a really important role for the board, and that's to hold the organization accountable for maintaining its values. So finding that way to grow fast enough, have enough footprint and impact in the community to address these big challenges that we have in front of us, do that while maintaining our values. That, I think, is a really important role of the board, and one that I would be happy to contribute to.
Thank you, Patrick. Joel?
When I think about growth of an organization like Vancity, I mean, I think we'd all agree that it would be better for our communities if more people do their banking at a credit union than do it at a bank. And the issue there, though, is when I talk to people, people don't really understand the difference between a co-op and a corporation, or a credit union and a bank. And I was at a cooperative summit a few years ago, and there was people from all over the world there, and everybody was excited, and we were all patting ourselves on the back because the number was that there was 1 billion people on the planet that belonged to a co-op. But then later on, somebody pointed out, like, how many of those billion people even know they belong to a co-op? I mean, anytime I talk to somebody about MEC and I ask them what their shares are worth, or talk about being an owner, they look at me funny. And yet, if you go to Costco, you get a card and you feel like you're a member and you feel like you belong. So I feel like in terms of member growth and increasing Vancity's impact, something Vancity can do is to really educate people about what the credit union difference is. And the more people understand that, I mean, changing financial institutions it's a hassle if you're going to move all of your accounts. And so, if people really understand what the difference could be if they bank at a credit union, then they'll be willing to do that, and membership will grow.
Thank you, Joel. And Mark?
Yeah, another great question. We've got some really smart people out there watching this. Thank you. Well, I came to Vancity 15 years ago because I was fortunate enough to have a contract to do a risk assessment study for Dockside Green, which I presented to the board at the time, and then the board decided to go ahead with the project. And I was so impressed by the values that were manifested, displayed by staff and the board members, that I switched all my banking to Vancity. And so that suggests to me that it's when you're making strategy, it's good to try and be focused, in my experience. And I think we should be going for, I think the target I saw in the annual report is $40 billion in assets, and 50% of that being with social impact assets. I think those are great targets. And I think if we focus on how do we get there, what are all the things we can do to enable that kind of growth, so that that will basically fuel viral marketing. Like, if we're out there enabling other people to do good through the loans and other services that we provide, they will be excited about us, and they will talk to their friends and family, and those people will come to us. So I think we can grow the way we want to grow by being even more proactive about doing good, and that's what we should focus on to get there. Thank you.
Thank you, Mark. For those of you just tuning in, this is a live Q&A for the 2019 Board of Directors candidates. You can leave a question in the comments in the section, and we will ask as many of them as we can. Thanks to everyone who have submitted questions so far. We have enough time for one last round of individual questions and one question for all candidates. The next one is for Mark. So Mark, this question is from one of our members. If you are elected, what are you hoping to get out of your board experience?
Okay, that's a good question. Well, I've reached the fortunate stage in my life where I don't need to work anymore. So I only do things that I enjoy doing, and more particularly things where I feel that I can make a difference, where I can give back. I feel blessed in what I've received from life so far. And so now I'm at a stage in my life when I want to contribute. So the biggest thing that I would hope to get out of it is being able to make a difference in the communities that Vancity serves, and make a difference to contribute towards making a difference for our members. And that's why I'm running. I'm a yoga teacher. I teach at Karma Teachers in the downtown east side, where all the teachers donate our time so that yoga can be made available at no charge to people who can't afford to pay. I'm a volunteer mechanic at Kickstart Community Bike Repair, and we provide very low-cost repair services for people to ride bikes. So my life now has become, because I have the luxury, it's all about giving back. And so that's what fulfills me, and that's what I would get out of being a director. Plus, I think there's some outstanding people on the board already and outstanding staff, and it would be an absolute privilege to be able to collaborate with them and advance the Vancity vision. Thank you.
Thank you, Mark. So our next question is from one of our members on Facebook for Joel. There has been a big increase in phishing and impersonation attempts. There is a phishing alert on vancity.com right now. In terms of technology and digital solutions, what do you think is a good solution that Vancity can provide its members to help safeguard their accounts?
This is an excellent question. I mean, the more work that I do in my professional life on security, the more terrified I become. I always say it's getting harder and harder to sleep at night. The type of attacks that are out there are becoming more sophisticated. And even when you look at the kinds of things that have been achieved by manipulating social networks, it's really quite extraordinary. You know, a good key, if you want to hack into something and get into something, it's not just about being really smart with the computer and breaking into a system. Social engineering is a big part of it. So the antidote to that is member education. So Vancity's done some of that. I think we can do more. I think helping people understand good practices. A lot of people use the same password for a lot of services. A lot of people have passwords that are too short. A lot of the password policies that people have learned that they think are good, they're actually not that great. And so there are some really simple tools and techniques that people can learn that can really help inoculate yourself against some of these attacks.
That's great. Thank you, Joel. So our next question comes to us from a Vancity staff member for Patrick. What do you feel has been your greatest working contribution?
Oh my gosh. I am getting most satisfaction out of what I'm doing right now at Modo. I think we have a real chance to make a difference in the community. I know we're doing that. You know, here we are 22 years in, still seeing double-digit growth. So there's something there that members appreciate, which is bringing, you know, them more affordable lives and making communities more sustainable. This, for me, if I can keep us on the growth path that we're on, and I'll come back to the growth question that we had. I've been all about accelerating growth of Modo, car sharing for more people in more places since I came on board. If I can realize that, that will be my greatest contribution. It's a work in progress. I don't think I've done my best work yet. I'm in a constant learning and education mode. I think joining this board, if I have that opportunity, is just a chance to scale up the kind of things that I'm doing today.
Thank you, Patrick. So our next question is an email question for Sharon. What experience do you have that will be of value to the Vancity board?
I think that would be spending 6 years on the board of the Vancouver Board of Education as a trustee, responsible for $500 million in public funds as the chair of the Finance Committee, and responsible for the K-12 education of the students in the Vancouver School District, many hundreds of staff and professional development, looking at the need for seismic upgrading in so many of our schools. It was a very intense 6 years of being part of that board, and the politics that happened at the same time. But I think also the experience I would bring working on a province-wide campaign, balancing the lived experience of families and building a campaign to influence public policy, and creating political space for good public policy change and explaining the need for public investment. I think there's some overlaps there to the kind of impact that Vancity has, and some of the scope of decisions that happen at the board table that impact the lives of real people. And again, I go back to the value of board members who will ask the questions of why. why staff are making recommendations, what are the options, and the impact on real people's lives. So yeah, thank you for the question.
Thank you, Sharon. So our next question comes to us through email for Sean. What is the most interesting experience you have had as a director?
Actually, as a director in any organization, you only know wherever are party to, I think they say it is 15% of everything that management knows about the organization and how it operates. And that learning that 15%, embracing that 15%, working with that 15% is in and of itself extremely rewarding, particularly when you're a part of organizations that you feel strongly about. When I've been a part of many. But I think the one that, or the one piece of it that I'm the most, proud of or appreciated the most was actually sitting at the board table working with management when an organization is dealing with a crisis. And the reason why I say that is because crisis often brings out the best, or can bring out the best in an organization, the people around the table. And it really highlights where you've got bench strength and also where you've got things that you need to get better at. And those experiences, especially if you're successful in managing them out well, are incredibly rewarding. You learn so much. And invariably also speaks to the brand of the organization and the nature and quality of the people that are there. And yeah, it's a very unique learning.
That's great. Thank you, Sean. So our next question is from one of our members for RITA. What do you think Vancity needs to do to make banking easier for its members?
Thank you. I think that it depends on the member. And so I work very closely, for instance, with new refugees to Canada. And making banking easier for those members has meant providing information, financial literacy in Arabic. It's meant explaining how to use a banking card and making sure they understand the vulnerabilities they have to phishing and other attacks to their bank accounts. I've worked with elderly populations, and I think the members there, to make banking easier for them, it's ensuring that they have the kind of one-on-one experience that they need in a branch when they need it. And then for young people, and I've mentioned my kids in the past, making banking easier for them means never having to come into a branch. It means being able to have Apple Pay and Android Pay on their phones. It means that Vancity really needs to be able to anticipate what they are going to want in terms of ethical investing and providing that service in a way that that's on their phone or online. So it's a multifaceted response.
Thank you, Rita. So our next question is by email for Stefan. In your resume, you stated that you have experience in digital transformation. Seeing that your IT experience is at least 6 years old, how do you think it can help Vancity's digital transformation goals in this fast-changing environment? How would you describe these goals?
Thank you, and fair question. Yeah, so my experience in sort of the world of IT does go back a few years. I've been away from my employer at Coast Mountain Bus Company and various union positions during that time. So it's a very fair question in that respect. But I think that the important thing with this is about what we talked about earlier, the question of keeping up with the changes in technology and keeping up with the needs of customers. And so it's not so much that it's current IT skills that are up to date. As a member of the board, I wouldn't be doing the IT for the organization, but it's about the fact that the board has to play a role in the direction of the company, of the credit union, in making sure that we're keeping up to date, that we're providing the types of digital services that customers want and need, and also that we are reaching out to customers where they are on modern platforms. And so those are things that I'm dedicated to. And in my current work as President of the Labour Council, we're busily working on gradual sort of modernization of our work. So that kind of That kind of change is something that I'm very dedicated to in everything I do, and the need to be up to date with the fast-changing world that we live in. Thank you.
Thank you, Stefan. This message or this question is from one of our members for NIKI. What qualities make a great board member?
A very good question. So in my experience, and I'll speak specifically to Vancity, I think what makes a great board member for this organization is the ability of the person to assimilate complicated and fast-changing information, and also understand the regulatory framework that we're under, which is also complicated as a financial institution, and understand how we maintain our values in that space. And in my experience as on the board so far, it shows up in many different ways, in ways that you least expect it. How we stay Vancity in the context of increasing regulation, a changing digital space, and members that are demanding more from us all the time. And these are the kind of things that we at the board table really want to keep member focused first. But really, I think a good board member understands how we stay who we are in the context of these very complicated and fast-changing things in the world, and really has a passion for the values that Vancity wants to put out in the world that drives them.
Thank you, NIKI. You guys are doing great. These are some really good questions. All right, this is our last question for all the candidates. If you weren't running, what would be the most important thing that you'd look for in a candidate, specifically in 2019, and why? Let's start with NIKI.
I answered that question partly, but I will say it again. I think first and foremost, to me as a member, it's values. I think that's something you can't teach somebody. They either come from a place where they operate within, and they want to see the world change progressively for the better. And like I said, you can't teach that. So that's always been the first thing that I look at. How have they lived their lives, and how do they show that they express those values? I think those are important. And then the other things that you just heard me talk about. I'll leave it at that. Thank you.
Thanks, NIKI. Stefan?
Thank you. Yeah, I mean, obviously, you want to look for the knowledge and the experience that you expect a board member to have, and some experience serving on different types of boards and things like that. But I agree that, really the values and living the values, what is the connection to the communities that we operate in as an organization? What is the involvement in those communities? How has a candidate acted in their lives to promote the types of values that Vancity stands for? And I think those are really the most critical things. We need to ensure that our credit union stays true to its values and always walks the talk. That's our path to growth, in my opinion, and to continuing as a healthy organization going forward. And in order to do that, you have to have a board that is really truly committed to those values and has demonstrated it consistently in their own lives. Thank you.
Thank you, Stefan. Rita?
So yeah, absolutely agree. You have to have a baseline of common values, and that is absolutely critical. I won't repeat what my colleagues have said. Beyond that, though, I believe at the board table we share those values, and yet we have very vigorous debates. And I think that a board member at Vancity needs to be able to listen and compromise, assimilate a lot of information, and change their mind and be able to make decisions. So I think that just that capacity to listen and make decisions based on what you've heard and compromise is really critical. I believe that having a base of financial acumen is important, but more important is an ability to learn and to learn quickly. And I certainly had a lot to learn in terms of the financial vocabulary that this credit union uses. Being able to learn that quickly is important, and then being able to go out and seek the information from the people are the experts is also important. You have to be humble in that approach. I know that for me, I have repeatedly gone out to our staff, who I feel have been very generous in their willingness to share their knowledge and expertise with me. And I think whether those experts are internal or external, a board member has to know what they don't know and be willing to go out and get it.
Thank you, Rita. Sean?
Yeah, yes, absolutely. The values alignment piece needs to be there. You also need somebody who's got the right skills that match up with what the board is looking for in terms of rounding out the complement of skills and competencies around the board table, which is why you see in the documentation some of the things that this board was looking for in terms of its candidates or prospective candidates. You also need someone who's a good communicator. The board table, dealing with management and wrestling with these issues requires someone who can actually process that information, articulate a point of view, respectfully challenge both board peers and management, and do it in a way that is respectful but also on point, is incredibly important. If you've got someone who's constantly bruising feelings as a result of their interactions with their peers, that becomes a bit of a problem. And then I guess the last thing that I would suggest too is they really do need to have good hair. I think good hair is very important if we're going to round it all out. Thank you.
Thank you, Sean. Sharon?
That's hard to top. I think I would be looking for a board member who had connections to community, to really assure that values alignment. I think values are something that gets tossed around a lot, but as was said, how do people show up in the world? What is their work on the ground? And the ability to learn. So not expecting, I think, that everybody's going to be able to show up being ready to hit the ground running, but really ready to learn, ready to ask questions, not being afraid to ask questions, asking hard questions at times, and not being afraid to represent real people's experience and asking the questions that members might want to ask, and have members' views represented. And so I think being authentic at the board table is really important, and staying connected back to community, and not being afraid to enter into that dialogue. And I think always being ready to get better, to think about things like diversity at the board table, things about how white is our board, for example. How does our board truly represent the membership that we serve, and how can we continue to improve? So some of those are the ways I'd be looking for a board member to show up.
That's great. Thank you, Sharon. Patrick?
So thank you. And I don't want to repeat all the great comments that have already been made. Let me offer a somewhat different perspective. I would look at this, and I would propose to voters to look at this from a portfolio point of view. So what you want is a group of individuals around the table that bring diversity and bring the potential for a really interesting dialogue that will surface all the issues and allow for a better decision at the end of the day. I will offer a small analogy, and I would say as well, don't look only for people that are like you when you're looking in this portfolio, because that's proven never to be successful. I will offer a small analogy out of the music world. You may like a lot the violin, but if you go to a symphony and it's only violin that's playing, that's not nearly as interesting as when we have wind instruments and we have percussion and maybe we have a cello or two in the mix. So I would propose, think about it like that. Think about the team that you're choosing, not the individual.
Thank you, Patrick. Joel?
Yeah, thanks very much. I appreciate your comments about portfolio. I've been a fairly engaged member over the years and have followed the elections closely and have voted. And it was really speaks to my decision to run this year with the experiences last year with the platform transition and the difficulties in October with the outage. Raised the question for me: is it time that we have some technology skill on the board? And decided that the board had also said that they were looking for that skill. So that's why I decided to put my name forward. And so I do think that's an important aspect of the diversity of skill set that we need at the board at this time.
Thank you, Joel. And Mark.
Okay, well, that's a brilliant question. So I think first and foremost, I would say you should be looking for people who have high emotional intelligence, because being a member of this board means being able to work with people around the board table. It means, and for me, that means you want to actually be able to empower your fellow board members. You want to be able to empower the outstanding management and staff that we have at Vancity. You want to be able to empower our members, and you also want to be able to empower the people in the communities that we serve, because that's how we're going to actually get a real handle on making the changes that we want to make going forward. And we've all talked about the challenges that we're facing, that Vancity's facing, that our society's facing. And so we want people who are great leaders and know how to inspire leadership within the entire Vancity staff and our membership and beyond. That's how we will really become powerful and impactful, even more so than we already are, and we are already doing a great job. So that would be one thing. And the other would be, I agree totally with Patrick, you want complementary expertise. And when the original call for nominations, the board said that they were looking for people who had experience with large, complex organizations, people who have sustainability experience, and people who have experience with digital transformation. And I have all three. So I would respectfully ask for your vote. I can deliver for you. Thank you.
Thank you, Mark. I want to thank all the candidates for being here and to all of our members for your incredible questions. As we wrap up, I'd like to offer all the candidates an opportunity to say one last thing to our members. Is there something you'd like our members to know? Let's start with Mark.
Well, I guess there's a comment on the questionnaire, in the Vancity Facebook page about diversity and inclusiveness, and I think that that's been an important part of my life. My father left South Africa. My parents are South African, and my father and mother left South Africa because they were violently in opposition to, in opposition to apartheid, and so that's why we immigrated to Canada. And that's why I feel very strongly about the importance of reconciliation. I think there has been, we have definitely committed, my ancestors have committed cultural genocide, and the time has come when we have to face that and work with the First Nations to go forward in the future in a much more positive way. And I guess, I think I've said really all there is to say about me. I can't think of anything else at this juncture, but thank you for the question. And I'm sure the others will have great things to say. I look forward to hearing their answers.
Thanks, Mark. Joel?
Yeah, so I've said a lot about technology tonight, so I'm not going to say any more about that. I really want to make sure everyone understands that how passionate I really am about the cooperative movement. I love talking. You can ask any of my friends. I talk about it a lot. I like explaining to people how amazing it is to get services from an organization where you're an owner. I like telling people that with Modo, I don't use a car share service. I'm a co-owner of 700 cars. But beyond that, it's the potential of co-ops and credit unions to transform our actual economy, to move away from the more damaging aspects of how our economy operates to something that's more equitable, more inclusive, and more sustainable. It's why I volunteered as a director of Modo for 7 years. I was the chair for 3. And it's why I'm excited by Vancity's scale and its potential to really impact, the impact that it can have on its members, on its amazing employees, and on the wider community. Ultimately, it's been a real honor to be part of this process, and it would be a real honor to have your vote. Thank you.
Thank you, Joel. Patrick?
So first and foremost, I want to thank everybody that's actually watching this for your interest. That's a really good sign that you care about the co-op, you care about Vancity, and you want to be a part of the democratic process that we all enjoy. You have some really great candidates to choose amongst. I was already impressed by the field, and that's certainly taken up another level this evening. I would suggest once again that you look at this in terms of a portfolio, and choose the candidates that you feel are best aligned to your values. What do I bring that's maybe a little bit different than some of the others? First, having led a pretty big organization, Vancity, with its 11,000 employees across U.S. and Canada, has allowed me to be really closely involved in complexity and really everything in a business that you could imagine happening in every functional part of the business, and strategy and risk management. Today, I live and breathe co-op. It's 100% of what I do. It's all about, at Modo, it's all about affordability for people. It's about a better environment. And I would really welcome the opportunity to do that on even a bigger scale at Vancity. Thank you.
Thank you, Patrick. Sharon?
Well, it has been a very interesting 2 hours, and to those listeners who are still tuned in, good for you for hanging in there. An amazing pool of candidates. It's an honor to be at the same table and to talk about Vancity and the contribution Vancity makes in our communities, and the way that we would all like to be a part of ensuring that Vancity is remains and grows as a progressive organization that serves its members well, serves its staff well, and invests profits back into community. So I would just reflect, I think, on the beginnings of Vancity and thinking back to the very first financial transaction in Vancity, which was $100 of a loan to a young woman, and Vancity's history of giving mortgages to women without needing their husband or their father to be a co-signer. And it's that kind of tradition and that kind of history which made me decide to very deliberately become a Vancity member and to move away from a bank a decade plus ago, knowing the role that Vancity plays in our communities, not just in Vancouver, but of course out as far as Chilliwack and up to Alert Bay and on Vancouver Island, and thinking this is an organization that is so special and so unique. And I had the opportunity to travel to Bologna in Italy with Vancity to look at, in northern Italy, what it means to have a co-op sector that actually is involved in every aspect of people's lives, and the benefits that cooperatives can bring to people in the health sector, in the social sector, in the financial sector. And while, of course, we're not there, we're not northern Italy, but the very concept of Vancity and the role that this organization plays for so many people and so many organizations is so important, and Vancity is too good not to keep getting better. Thank you.
Thank you, Sharon. Sean?
Yeah, folks, thanks for staying with us for the evening. And as others have said, it's a great pool of people that you have sitting in front of you. And the choices that you make are incredibly important with respect to how the organization is led over the next 3 years until the next election. To call out some of the things that I haven't spoken to tonight, I too have been involved in and led or been part of complex organizations, 2 global organizations. I've sat on the board of Mountain Equipment Co-op, which in terms of annual revenues is comparable to Vancity. And in that role have also, as the board has overseen over the last several years, some fairly sophisticated investment and significant investment in IT. Where we've learned a lot about what success looks like, and we've also learned some things when things don't go so well. And that also provides me then with a unique line of sight, in the digital conversation that hits the board table, and the kinds of things that the board should be mindful of and asking about and concerned about. And then lastly, the values piece, which I think I've articulated tonight. Vancity is a special organization. The board is special, the staff, what it achieves in the community is special. And that's something that I'd very much like to be a part of, and that I know that I could contribute strongly at the board table on your behalf. So I appreciate your support.
Thank you, Sean. Rita?
Thanks to everybody online for sticking with us and for joining us. And I want to say thank you to members for the trust that they have placed in me over the last 3 years. If I have to characterize, if there were a word to characterize how I've felt over the past 3 years, it would be that I've been amazed. I have been amazed at the dedication of staff, the commitment of staff, the innovation of members, the caring of members, and amazed by the way in which Vancity really leverages all of its resources, financial and otherwise, in service of our communities. It is an inspiring place to be. I have been part of co-ops since I had my first bank account, which was with a credit union in Nelson. But in my career, I have supported the very smallest of co-ops in villages in South Asia. I have been on the board of Mountain Equipment Co-op. I've been on this board. And, you know, in some ways, they are all the same. They are about people who come together to meet their needs, to take care of each other, and to recognize that there are people in our communities who are marginalized, and that by bringing our resources together, we can serve those members as well as ourselves. So I'm very proud to be part of that co-op movement. I'm proud to be here. I hope to have your vote in this election, and thank you again.
Thank you, Rita. Stefan.
Thank you very much, and I would just echo the thanks to all of the members who have been part of this today and asked questions and stuck through it for the 2 hours. I just want to say that, you know, I'm here, I'm running for the board to serve our members at Vancity and the progressive cooperative values that we all share. I feel that I live those values day to day, and I am a millennial, but one who's been involved and engaged in community and social justice work and activism for more than half of my life, since high school. And so while I recognize I may not have the lived experience of some candidates, that I know that I have an important perspective and contribution to make despite that, and as well as a commitment to never stop learning and getting better. So thank you very much for your consideration and for your support.
Thank you, Stefan and Nikki.
Thank you. I want to thank my colleagues here. It's been really heartwarming to me, just as a member, to know that we have such great quality people stepping forward. So thank you, and to staff for organizing. And to all the members that are out there that are listening, thank you for listening and participating in the democratic process. And I know, just like you, all of us believe in the value of Vancity and the impact that we're having on the community. And I can say that throughout my life, I've dedicated my career and my volunteer time to be involved in the forefront of progressive social change, whether it was with Indigenous people, or more recently to help set up a universal childcare plan for the province of British Columbia. It's part of who I am, and it's part of the reason that I'm running here. I think we have so much more potential and so much more to give for this organization, and I'm proud of the accomplishments we've had to date. And I've just been so honored that you've placed trust in me for the last term, and I would really be honored to have your support for more. Thank you.
Thank you, Nikki. Once again, thank you to our members for participating today. We'll have this video available on our website right here on Facebook after the event has ended. We're sorry we couldn't get to all of your questions today, but we invited the candidates to respond directly to all the questions on Facebook after today's event. Voting is open until Thursday, April 18th at 4 p.m. Pacific Daylight Time. You can vote at vancity.com/elections or on your phone using the Vancity mobile app, or by mail or vote in branch from April 9th to the 13th. By voting, you're helping to shape Vancity's strategic vision. It's your right and a key difference in a member-owned credit union. Election results will be announced at the annual general meeting on Tuesday, May 14th. Thank you so much and have a great night.